Hello guys, I'm so happy to have you back here on the channel, and if this is your first time stopping by here on the channel, you are welcome to BLO'S Closet. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with us how to draft a 3-in-1 skirt pattern. So I'm going to be sharing with us how to draft a pencil skirt, a straight skirt, and an A-line skirt all in one pattern. So this is going to be like a multi-purpose pattern. If you're interested in learning how to cut this 3-in-1 skirt pattern, keep on watching and let us get straight into drafting. I have my pattern paper laid out here that I'll be using for the front. So make sure that your pattern paper is long enough to accommodate your length and wide enough to accommodate your hip measurement divided by 4. So from the top of this my pattern paper, I'm just going to be reeling a line, and this line is going to be my starting line and my waistline. So I'm going to rule this line and I will label it my waistline. This is also my starting line. Next, I'll impute all my vertical measurements. From my waistline, which is my starting line, I marked 10 inches, which is the distance from my waist to my hips, and then I marked 25 inches, which is the length of this my skirt. I'm going to be repeating the same thing on the other side of this pattern. After that, I am going to rule out these lines and I will label the lines. Next, we are going to impute all our horizontal measurements, and I am going to be starting from the waist. I'm going to divide my waist measurement by 4 and mark that down, and my waist is 30 inches divided by 4 is 7.5 inches. Now I am going to be adding extra 1 inch to that measurement, and this is going to be for my dart. On my hip line, I am going to be marking my hip measurement divided by 4. My hip is 40 inches divided by 4, and that is 10 inches. You can decide to add 0.5 inches for ease allowance or 0.25 inches, but I won't be doing that because I want this skirt to be well fitted around my hips. So on the length line, I am going to be marking exactly what I have on my hip line, which is 10 inches, and I'm going to be connecting these 3 points together. From my waist to my hips, I am going to be using the curved part of my ruler. If you are using a curved ruler, make sure that the curved part of your ruler is placed towards your hip area to achieve a better result, just like I'm doing mine. And for the rest of this, I am going to be connecting it with a straight line. Next, I am going to be imputing my waist dart. So on my waistline, I'm going to be marking my bust span measurement divided by 2. My bust span measurement is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches. For the length of this my dart, I'm going to be going 3 inches above my hip line. You can use 2 inches, 1 inches. Use whatever length of dart that you want, but just make sure that your dart does not get to your hip line. And this is just me marking that 3.5 inches. That's my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, and I'm ruling this line out. Recall that I added extra 1 inch to my waist measurement for that allowance. I am going to be dividing this 1 inch by 2, and I'm going to be marking half an inch on both sides of this my bust span line, and I'll be using the help of my straight ruler to connect it towards the end of this my dart. And you should have something that looks like this when you're done. Can you see that? Now, because this is a skirt pattern that I am drafting, I am going to be raising the side of my waist by half of an inch. Okay, so under your waistline, go up by half of an inch, and I am going to be connecting this into my waistline. And in order to do this, I am going to be folding in my darts. Okay, can you see the way I folded it? From that middle line, I folded it to conceal my dart. Take your time to do this. And I'm going to be bringing my ruler, and with the help of my ruler, I am going to be blending this my half inch that I raised up towards the waistline like this. And finally, when I open up my dart, I'll have something that looks like this. Can you see that it's blended into that dart area? Now on the center front of this my skirt, I am also going to be coming down by half an inch, and I'll close my dart like this and blend it in. So the reason why I raised my waistline by half of an inch and came down by half of an inch is to have a very smooth finish around the waist area. You're not going to be having any fold or creases when you put this on. but this step is totally optional. All right, you can decide to not do this. Your pencil skirt is going to come out fine. You can just maintain your original waistline. However, if you're attaching this to an upper bodice to create a gown, maintain your original waistline. And right now our straight skirt pattern is ready. Can you see that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my scissors and cut around this line. So watch carefully to see the lines I'm cutting. I'm cutting out my length line, and finally I am cutting out the sides, but I will not be cutting out the waist quite yet. I'm going to be using this to draft my back pattern before I cut out this my waist. All right, so right now we have our straight skirt pattern ready, and the next thing I'm going to do is create my pencil skirt pattern. In order to create my pencil skirt pattern, I'm going to measure out what I have on my hips, and I'll take out 2 inches from that. You can decide to take out 1 inch or 1.5 inches. It depends on how fitted you want this your pencil skirt to be, but for me I am going to be subtracting 2 inches from my hip measurement. So 10 minus 2 inches is 8 inches, and that is what I have marked there. Next, on my hip line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch, okay, and I would connect that 1 inch point down to that 2 inches point that I marked on my length line. And just like that, our pencil skirt is ready. Okay, and the reason why I came down by 1 inch from my hip line is to avoid pointy ends around my hip. So right here is my pencil skirt, okay, and right here is my straight skirt. I hope this makes sense to you, right? So if I want to cut out a pencil skirt, all I need to do is fold in this line like this, and we have our pencil skirt. Can you see that? It's so beautiful. And if you want to cut out a straight skirt, all you need to do is open this up. So we have our straight skirt and our pencil skirt here. So the next thing I am going to do is use this to trace out my back pattern. So I have another fresh piece of pattern paper that I have laid out here, and I folded some part of this my paper inside, and you can see this line that I have here, that is about 1.5 inches. I folded in by 1.5 inch, and this is for my zipper allowance. I'll be folding back this my zipper allowance in, and I'll bring my front skirt pattern and place it onto the back like this, aligning the center front to the center back. All right, use pins or tapes to secure this in place to ensure that it doesn't move. And I'm going to be using my marker to trace out some points. I'll trace out my hip, my waistline, the original waistline. All right, I'm going to be tracing it out on both sides. I'm going to also be tracing out my hip line. I'll trace this out on both sides, and I'll trace out my length line. All right, and I'll also be tracing out that 2 inches mark that I came in for my pencil skirts. Okay, so this is me tracing it on the other part of this my skirt pattern. After marking all these points onto my back skirt pattern, I am going to just place some weight to make sure that this does not move, and I'm going to be cutting around this my pattern. Okay, now like I said, I will not be cutting out the waistline of this my skirt yet. So after cutting out this my pattern, I am going to pull out the front skirt pattern, and I'll be cutting out the waistline of this my front skirt pattern. So basically our front skirt pattern is ready, and this is me ruling out those lines that I marked, and I am going to go ahead and label out these lines. So this is my waistline, and the other line is my hip line. All right, and this is my length line. So the next thing I am going to do is I am going to be connecting and marking out my pencil skirts like this, just like we did for the front. And on the waistline, I am going to be marking my darts just like I did for the front, 3.5 inches. But for the length of this my dart for the back, I am going to be coming up by 2 inches from the waistline. You know that for the front dart I came up by 3 inches, but for the back I came up by 2 inches. So I'm marking this point just like I did for the front, and also I'm going to be marking 1/2 inch on both sides of this line just like I did for the front, and I will connect it. All right, remember that we raised the side of our waist by 1/2 inch. So for the back, I am also going to be raising the side by 1/2 inch so that our pattern correlates, so that it matches up at the waistline. So I'm just going to be blending this into this my second that leg. Make sure that you raise your side by half of an inch on the back if you raised it on the front. So now I am going to be opening up my zipper allowance. On my waistline, I am going to be marking 1 inch. Okay, from that, you know, that was zipper line. I'm going to be marking 1 inch outwards. So this is just me extending this line. And on my hip line, instead of 1 inch for zipper allowance, I'm going to be marking 1.5 inches. And on the length of this my skirt, I'm going to be marking 1 inch. So it's 1 inch on the length, 1.5 inch on the hips, and 1 inch on the waist. So I am just going to be connecting these points together like this. So I have 1.5 inch on my hip line instead of 1 inch is so that it can accommodate my butt very well. So you can see that we have a curved situation going on right here. So I'm just going to grab my scissors and I am going to cut around these lines. After cutting, our back skirt pattern is ready, and this is just me indicating that this is the back. I'm going to be drawing in my green line. I would indicate who this pattern is for and how many pieces I should cut. I'll be cutting 2 pieces for the back, and also this is me indicating that this is my front pattern. I'm drawing in my green line, indicating that I am supposed to cut this on fold, and I'll be cutting 1 piece on fold. So this is what I have here. So I did not add any seam allowance to this pattern, but if I'm cutting onto my fabric, I'll add seam allowance on the side, hemming allowance below, and also stitching allowance on the waistline. Now I am going to be drafting my A-line skirt pattern. In order to do this, I placed the front skirt block onto a fresh piece of pattern paper. Okay, I made sure that this my front skirt piece is on top of this my new pattern paper, and I am tracing out the sides of this my front skirt pattern onto this fresh piece of pattern paper, like you can see me doing. All right, so make sure that you use pins to pin this in place so that it doesn't move. And this is me extending out my hemline, all right, onto this my fresh pattern paper. And next I am going to mark out my A-line. All right, I marked out 8 inches, but this is dependent on how A-line you want your skirt to be. You can mark out 4 inches, 5 inches, 7 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches. It's dependent on your taste and your preference. All right, use your discretion. So now with the help of my long ruler, I am going to be connecting this mark towards the waistline. Okay, you can decide to mark this, okay, slant this into your waistline. You can decide to slant it into your hip line. Just use your discretion, do whatever makes you happy. All right, so this is just me going in to slant this towards my waistline. You can see that the first line I made was not very close to my waistline, so I started to make it to slant it into my waistline directly. All right, and this is what I have, you guys. So like this, our A-line skirt pattern is ready, and I am cutting this out. This is just me cutting out some excesses on this side, and can you see our A-line pattern? It's so beautiful. So in order to use this, I'm just going to be placing my front skirt pattern. I'm going to overlap it like this and make sure that it matches with this line that I marked out, and voila, our A-line skirt pattern is ready. And I'll duplicate this for my back pattern, and this is what I have. I used my pins to secure it in place, and this is it for the back pattern, you guys. Oh my god, I'm so excited. I'm just going to label this part my A-line skirt, and we are good to go, you guys. So this is my A-line skirt pattern like this. If you want to cut your A-line, just take this, keep onto your fabric and cut out your A-line, adding your allowances. And if you want to cut out a pencil skirt pattern, all you need to do is detach it like this and fold it in, and your pencil skirt pattern is ready. You just cut it and add your allowances. And if you want to cut out your straight skirt pattern, you just open it up, cut it, add your allowances. So guys, here you have it, a 3-in-1 skirt pattern. If you found this video helpful in any way at all, please give this video a like so that more people can get to see it. And if you're watching up until this point and you're not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Drop your questions, your thoughts in the comment section. Share this video with your friends. Turn on your post notification bell so that you'll be updated whenever I post new videos. And I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.